All right, Colt single action. Hickok 45 here. You know, one of my favorite firearms. This one happens to be the Long Branch Colt. All right, I'm going to introduce you to it and tell you about it and what the heck Long Branch means, okay? Let's take a look at this thing. Oh, let me too. Look at those big 45s. Man, empties. All right, Long Branch Colt, that's what this is. And Colt 45. And you may have seen John did a short video with it. And since then, I've acquired it from him. We didn't really plan on that, but I had some firearms he really wanted, and he said, I'll trade you the Colt for it. And oh, well, maybe so. So I had to reconsider. And anyway, we made a trade, and it's mine. Oh, don't you hate it? Don't I hate it? I have another Colt single action. Oh, man, too bad. I hate these things. This is, again, the Long Branch Colt. And what the heck is the Long Branch? For some of you youngsters, maybe some of you oldsters who have not spent enough time in your life reading about the Wild West or watching Westerns. Don't know what's wrong with you, how you ended up in that kind of shape, but the Long Branch Saloon was a famous saloon in Dodge City, Kansas, okay? One of the several cow towns that was very rough in the 1870s, 1880s. Very tough place to live. A lot of crazy cowboys driving cattle, mostly up from Texas, ready to party. And just an interesting time in American history. And most people are kind of familiar, vaguely at least, with the Wild West in that period of time in the United States. You know, it was just a crazy, crazy time, unlike any other. And it didn't even last all that long, just a few decades. And the Long Branch Saloon is kind of a piece of that history in Dodge City, as well as some other towns, and obviously all around the West. Well, this is a one of 300 Colts. It's I call it tallow. I've heard people refer to it as talo, but a tallow special edition. They made 300s of these. I guess Colt made them, but they requested the specifics of it, however that works. But it's a tallow edition, Long Branch Colt, one of 300. This one is Long Branch Colt LBC 220. This is number 220, and they were in a special run. Okay, most people have more sense than John and I have, and they just put them in the closet or gun safe, and they have them as collector's items. You know me, if I've got a Colt, John's the same way. We're going to shoot it, whatever the firearm is. Probably we're going to shoot the thing. So anyway, this was kind of based on what they based it on, and that's why I have the card out here, and I scanned that, and I'm a scan freak, I guess you'd say. I'm a backup freak when it comes to stuff and everything on drives and external hard drive, all that kind of thing. I've told you about my little obsession with that, I think. But I scan a lot of things. I scan this just to sort of have it. This came with it, and I want to always preserve that. And on it has the letter that Bat Masterson wrote to Colt in 1885. He said, "Gents, please send me one of your nickel-plated short 45 caliber revolvers. It is for my own use, and for that reason I would like to have a little extra pains taken with it. I'm willing to pay the extra for extra work. Make it very easy on the trigger," meaning have a light trigger, "and have the front sight a little higher and thicker than the ordinary pistol of this kind. Put on I think it's gutta percha. I don't think it's gutta percha handle, and send it as soon as possible. Have the barrel about the same length that the ejector rod is. Truly yours, W.B. Masterson," standing for William Barclay Masterson, the name he went under most of his life. His actual name, I think, was Bartholomew, and Bat, he went by Bat, but he went by William Barclay, Barclay. But he actually went by Bat Masterson. So, who's Bat Masterson? You may not be familiar with him either. And I thought I'd give you a little information on him, not too much, but you can look it up. Very interesting character, Bat Masterson. Many of you are familiar with these characters of the Old West and the Wild West, and more so than I am. I've read you know, about many of them, bits and pieces here, some books on some of them, and, you know, Hickok, I read some books on him. It's just different interesting characters from the West. And Bat Masterson is one of them. And the cool thing about him was he touched so many other of these characters of the Wild West and knew them. He was friends with them, worked with them, and he was a character himself. He doesn't get quite the fame of, say, Wyatt Earp. The OK Corral, I guess, changed the game. You know, when in 1881, the big gunfight at the OK Corral, that really that hit the news and all the dime novels in big way, because that was a pretty dramatic shootout by anybody's standards. And right there in town, John and I have been to Tombstone. Hopefully you have too, and seen, you know, where that took place and everything. But so he worked. Bat Masterson worked with Wyatt Earp. You know, they worked together. He worked with, gosh, Bill Tillman, Luke Short. He knew all these people and worked those cow towns as a sheriff. He was also just a gunfighter who got into several scrapes himself when he was not a lawman. His first one was in Sweetwater, Texas. And funny, John and I stopped in Sweetwater on a trip out west a couple of years ago, and there was, you know, an article on the wall about it and everything in the little restaurant where we had breakfast there, about his being shot there and killing some guy and recovering from his wound. He was shot in the pelvis, and it was something over a woman or something, and it ended up the other guy that was causing, I guess, most of the trouble ended up killing the woman accidentally. So both of them were dead. And then Bat Masterson survived that gunfight. And that was his first gunfight, I think, that anybody really knows about. But he was wounded in the pelvis and he survived it. Maybe that's why I used a cane sometimes. But he was in several scrapes like that. He was a buffalo hunter early on. And when he was younger, I think 20 years old, he was in the Second Battle of Adobe Walls, which you might look that up too. We don't, you know, our videos are long enough. I won't try not to run it 55 minutes, but interesting adventure there, where they were vastly outnumbered by Plains Indians, and these buffalo hunters held them at bay, and they lost a few of their guys, but they came out on the top end of that battle, and he was in on that. And he probably was, I was telling John, would have been involved in the OK Corral shootout if he had not been called back to Dodge City by his brother, was in some trouble. So he was in Tombstone, but from something I read that he left in early 1881 to go back to Dodge City. So he wasn't there when all that came to a head, or else he'd probably been involved in that too. So he was a lawman in several places, Colorado. He knew Doc Holliday, you know, Earp, all those guys. And he was a friend of Teddy Roosevelt. In fact, Roosevelt hired him to be U.S. Marshal in the Southern District of New York for a period of time. It paid pretty well. He was interested in prize fighting as that was getting going. He was a sportsman. He was a gambler. He was an all-around character. And like a lot of the lawmen of the times were, they really needed some tough people to be the sheriff. For example, you think about it, in those cow towns, you needed somebody really tough. You needed somebody just like the bad guys, or not necessarily bad guys, but the ruffians who could handle them. And that's why they'd get people like Earp and Bat Masterson, you know, people that Hickok, you know, people that had a reputation. They'd been in scrapes themselves, maybe even on the wrong side of the law a few times. Quite often they would end up being the best lawmen, okay? But so he was quite a character. I encourage you to read more about him. He was involved in a lot of the Indian fighting, you know, just you name it, buffalo hunting. He and his brother was killed, and some of that's depicted in the movie Wyatt Earp fairly accurately, I think, and some of it's not. But this type of firearm grew out of that letter. They took that letter that he wrote to Colt and said, well, let's just make a version of this. And that's kind of what they tried to do. Now, it may not be exact. I think the front sight is just like, you know, the other Colts, the third generation Colts. But they supposedly have a high luster nickel finish on it, and the grip is not the gutta percha, you know, it's walnut. Gutta percha, I looked that up. It's I wasn't familiar with that. It's very popular back in the day. It's kind of like the early polymer or something. It's a sap from a tree in Malaysia, and it was used quite widely at the time, and was very very useful. It was impervious to weather for the most part and all that, so there was a fair amount of that used, I guess. But these are walnut, and they're just a little bit oversized. They feel great. They feel great. They got a different kind of finish. It's supposed to be good if they get wet or anything, and still give you not get too slippery. And let's see what else they do different. They what they call the fire blue screws. Those I could take or leave. They're all right though. I tried to dress it up a little bit, I guess. And it's just nicely done Colt. And as has been the story lately, the third generation Colts seem to be made well. This thing it's got a great action on it, and you can hear those 4 clicks. Hear that? C-O-L-T. Really solid action, good trigger. This just might be my carry gun from now on. You know, let's load her up here. All right, so anyway, this is the Long Branch. Again, the Long Branch Saloon. That's where they hung out. That was supposedly the best saloon, the most refined saloon in Dodge City of the time. If you watch the TV series Gunsmoke, that's loosely based on Wyatt Earp. They don't really make any claims of it, but it's pretty obvious, the Long Branch Saloon and everything. And that's the name they chose for this. Okay, so the Long Branch Colt. There's probably people that have seen this and wondered what the heck Long Branch means. Is it based on a tree or something? Let's shoot the paper target a couple times. All right. See if I remember where this thing hits. Wow, pulled that one. Okay, I'm just throwing them. Short barrels are harder to shoot than the long ones. There's no doubt about it. But if you take your time, you can do fine with it. I still, as I have said before in my Colt single action videos, I still am not sure which barrel length I like the best. It would depend on what I was doing. If I lived in the West, if I was a gunfighter and I was hanging out in saloons and gambling, risking my life, everybody's drunk, packing 45s or 44s in there all night, you'd probably want a short firearm like this, and you'd be able to wear it in different holsters and easier to conceal if you wanted, and just not have the long barrel maybe. But if I was out and around, you know, just for general use out and around, I prefer the longer barrel. They're easier to shoot well. They really are. But these have a really nice balance as well. All right, see if I can hit something. Like that. 2 liter. Yeah. Oh, now the pot's wet. It won't smoke. Yeah, well, a little bit. Cool. What else here? Bowling pin. Did he fire 4 or did he fire 5? I think he fired 5. You always want to be careful unloading them. I always try to get my hand back here and just catch them. Scratch the firearm as little as possible. Look at those big chambers. Nothing like a single action, whether it's a Colt or Uberti or whoever makes it. Oh man, they are sweet. And remember, you always cock it all the way back and then down. Whatever you're doing, you don't want to go down from anywhere except back there. And that way you'll preserve your action and your cylinder and everything a little bit better. Pretty gun. Nickel Colts are not my favorite finish, but they're okay. I've got 2, you know, already. And in this firearm, it just looks cool. I like it, I have to say. Never thought I'd buy another nickel Colt, but this is not bad. Let me shoot a couple of my hand loads while I'm out here. Oh yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, Masterson, who inspired this firearm, was quite an interesting character. You might find it enjoyable just reading about him. The real deal. And he was a fairly sharp individual, apparently. You know, he was a sports writer for the last, about 20 years of his life in New York City, and wrote about other things too. But he wrote some short, I don't know, they weren't really books, I guess, but stories about some of the characters of the West that he knew, Cody and others, Earp, I think, and various folks. But so he was a writer, but he was a wild dude in his early days. There's a 2 liter hiding from the Masterson Revolver. I wonder if he did any bowling. I bet he did. Yeah. All right. Like the way it spun. I might be empty. I don't know. Might have one more. We'll see. Ah, I did. All right. Pretty cool. If you've never fired a single action, get at it. I mean, really, be making plans and do something about that. Let me put it in the holster there. That's a pretty good looking rig. El Paso Saddlery. You've seen that before. They made that for me. It's been about a year or so ago, I guess. And that's for a 5.5 inch barrel. But you know, any of them will work. Even a 7.5 will protrude out the bottom of it, and it doesn't really matter that much. You know. Unless you're shooting black powder, and then your pants leg gets all black and sooty. All right, what else did I not tell you about it? Like I said, I think you probably know more about Bat Masterson. Excuse me, William Barclay Masterson. If say he'd remained in Tombstone, of course, and been involved in the OK Corral shootout, being a friend of White Earp, I imagine he would have been involved. And then, of course, too, because of the OK Corral, and that being such a huge event, which propelled, you know, Holiday and Earp more into the limelight, I think it probably raised the level of awareness, not infamy, the level of knowledge and awareness of Bat Masterson and those. And there's a TV show, it's running now on the Westerns channel, about Bat Masterson. It's, again, a little bit Hollywooded up, I think, but you know, it's out there, you know, so you might want to study up on him. What else would I want to do here? I guess I've shot, let's see, was there anything else on here I read the letter to you, yeah, okay, so I'll make sure I didn't leave something out, because this is an actual photograph in Dodge City. The Peace Commission, they call them, but you see, and it tells you who is who, and that is Bat Masterson up there. He was known for that derby hat. He's the third one over on the top, and he didn't look as much. He was a little bit more of a fancy dresser, and at least he's always portrayed that way, and of course that kind of demonstrates that. And then White Earp is right there, the second one on the bottom row. So, famous characters of the West. I, like a lot of people, have always been fascinated by that, and part of that's because I grew up watching Westerns, and I grew up liking firearms. You might have figured that one out. And so the Wild West and Firearms of the Wild West, it's just a natural progression. Let's put him in the holster. Now, this is not a fast draw holster, and I may have pointed out before, this is your standard double loop holster, which was probably the most popular back in the day. A lot of the fancy rigs you see that are dropped way down here, those are mostly Hollywood. And this is really what they wanted. They wanted it up here to where it wasn't slapping your leg and being annoying, okay? You know, and then fast draw in general is just overrated, you know, in the movies. Let me walk down here a little bit and see if I can hit those 2 liters. I don't want to waste a lot of lead. All right. All right. All right, proud of myself. I don't shoot the 4 3/4 inch Colts as much. Let's try the gong. Your sights really have to be right on. Oh, I saw that, I think. Oh, it felt good. I think I'm going over it. Let's go back up here and load him up again. I might have to go 2 hands. I've hit the gong with it. It's not as though it's an inaccurate pistol or something. It's a little bit like taking a pocket gun and shooting at the gong or something further away. Especially one hand, I should be able to hit that. Actually, I kind of haven't shot it, to tell you the truth, enough to have a good feel for exactly where to hold once I get out longer ranges. Okay, oops, get that one later. All right, I'm gonna hit the gong. All right. Again, I load 5. We got a video on that, and the reason is just habits, good habit. All right, let me see if I can figure out where to hold. Okay. The leaves are covering up all the dust, so it's not as easy to see the misses. All right, I guess hold right there. Let's try, well, let's shoot the gong again. What the heck? Okay, that's a nice sound. So I was just pulling left a little bit, and with a 4 3, a short barrel Colt, it's easier to do. It really is. This is a gunfighter's gun. It's for this kind of thing, like right here. All right, red plate. Oh, cowboy, red plate. Don't you mess with me. Yeah. And those are kind of to the left, so I have to watch it. It's really easy to pull left. I'll shoot a couple more times. I know y'all need to get to dinner. You've heard too much history about Matt Masterson. If you know anything else about Matt Masterson, we may have some people that have like read, 5 books on him. You may have some other interesting things to point out, or some interesting things to point out. Nothing I pointed out might be interesting, actually. Interesting to me, okay? So there's just something about these characters in the West, that time period, that is fascinating to a lot of us. And the real exploits, there's a lot of fantasy exploits, a lot of things made up about those characters, that's for sure. But these, and then too, as I have said before many times, when I have an old World War II rifle or something, or pistol, or Civil War rifle, or whatever it is, there's just something cool about it. If you're into firearms, you know what I'm talking about. To fire something that people 100, 150 years ago carried, and when they pulled that up and they shot, whether they were target shooting or whether they were in a gunfight, whether they were a lawman, whatever they were doing, whether they were a trick shot or something, this is what it felt like, and this is how it operated, and this is basically it. If we have some brand new people out there, by the way, this is the 1873 Colt, and it's been made pretty much continuously, just a couple little breaks, since 1873, and it's still made today. Do I need to tell you that? These were made in 2015, and they're in Connecticut right now building these things. More on that later. We have some more information about some of these coming. All right, what do I want to shoot the last ones on here? Oh, I know, we always got to shoot the coffin. Okay, so this would not be my first choice for a quick draw holster, of course, although if you tie it down, it would work okay. But there's a Desperado. Let me come down here and take care of this cowboy. That's what it is. There's a Desperado down there. I don't want to get too close to him. But he's threatened me, and he's about to draw on me. So I'm afraid I've got to swing into action. Click. I actually missed him once, so he might have gotten me. But this is just sweet. And one thing I'm really pleased about is it's very sound mechanically. Some of the third generation Colts that were made back in the 80s and 90s, some of the work on them was not exquisite. Let's leave it that way. And some of it was fine, but they have really turned it around at Colt. And in fact, I talked several times to the fellow who's in charge of the custom shop. That's where they're all made. And I know what their goals are and what they're doing, and how they're really trying to make the best Colts they've ever made in there, and that's really cool. Now, they're hard to get. You don't see a lot of them in gun shops, do you? They're the waiting period and all that. But they're doing a good job on the things, and that's impressive. You can just tell by the action. I've had a lot of them. And I can tell. I'm not an expert, but I'm close, at least in terms of being able to tell the difference. And some of the shoddy ones, shoddy might be a little strong, but for a Colt, because they're expensive, so they should be made really well. But the Long Branch Colt, this is pretty cool. I'm glad to have this in my collection, and I will shoot it, obviously. Been doing that, so it's not worth what it costs retail, because it's been shot and it's going to be shot, but I'll take care of it, and I'll enjoy it. Long Branch Colt 45. It doesn't get a lot better. Life is good. Since I'm still here, let me thank SDI for all their help. SDI is a fully accredited online gunsmithing school. Check them out at sdi.edu. We'd also like to thank Bud's Gun Shop and Federal Premium for all of their support. You can find us on Full 30 also now, and you can find the links to our Facebook pages and the other YouTube pages in the description of any video. So I invite you to check out the description in every video, or any video, you'll find what you need to know. And you'd better do it.